Wake Up Warchant, fueled by DeLuna Coffee. Come explore our world of coffee. Established in 2014, DeLuna Coffee is owned and operated by the Lemmix family. Ed, Courtney, and their son Brett. Ed graduated from FSU in 1979, Brett in 2009. Lifelong fans and Florida State boosters, the Lemmixes attend multiple football games every year where you can find them tailgating near the Unconquered statue. Pull up a chair and pour yourself a Palafox Place. Named after the main hub, Palafox Place in downtown Pensacola, DeLuna has combined a Brazilian, Colombian, and African bean to give it just the right flavor. This coffee can be enjoyed any time of the day. Use the promo code WARCHANT15 for a 15% discount. Visit DeLunaCoffee.com and check out their Facebook and Instagram.
From Tally to Cali,
it's time
to wake up.
Wake up, wake up. WarChant.com is your ultimate Seminole sports source.
And this is Wake Up Warchant, fueled by DeLuna Coffee.
Coffee's for closers only.
Now here's WarChant.com's Aslan Hajavandi
and Corey Clark.
Wake up! We back. It's Wake Up Warchant, fueled by DeLuna Coffee. DeLunaCoffee.com. Come explore our world of coffee. Use the promo code WARCHANT15 when you go to DeLunaCoffee.com. You can save up to 15% on your order. And so you all know, the bundles, they back. Right now, you can get a tumbler, a 12-ounce bag of Palafox Place coffee. You can get it ground finely for your drip coffee makers, coarse if you're a French press pour-over guy, or you can get the whole bean and hold it in your hand, your possession. Get the aroma and determine how you want to consume your delicious coffee, as well as 1 tin of chocolate-covered espresso beans. $40. It's a $55 value, Core. They're practically giving it away for $40 over at DeLunaCoffee.com. WarChant.com, ultimate Seminole sports source. We're rolling out previews for the upcoming spring football season, Corey, which I think we're like less than 30 days away from. No official kickoff date announced, but we are getting close to spring football. You, Ira, myself talked about receivers. That story should be up on the website. Tom, Jeff, Gene, they'll all be jumping into the fray. We're getting close, man. We're getting close. But before we get to that, how are you?
I'm good, buddy. Thanks for asking. I really do appreciate that. For real. That comes from the heart.
Okay, good. So, how excited are you for these wide receivers? I thought it was a good preview. I liked it. I thought there were some good takes. It was like a pickup basketball game. Lots of passion out there, good takes. So, after you and I and Ira talked about the receivers, where do you sort of stand? Any other additional thoughts, ancillary thoughts to add on to what is on the website as well as our YouTube channel?
Well, probably not stuff that we haven't talked about before, but that the fact about rising tide lifts all boats. The fact that they've got 4 guys that are probably as good as most everybody they already had on the roster, and for the younger guys to even get on the field now, and I'm talking about the second and third year guys like Burrell, Portier, Williamson. They're going to have to play a lot better than they play. They don't just get to show up on the field because there's nobody else. Like, it's now a big room with legitimate D1 receivers, and if you're going to beat out, Wilson or Pittman or Wright, you're going to have to play really well in practice. You're going to have to show that you can do it. And you remember last year, Aslan, especially when we started watching August, the first couple weeks, maybe the first week of August practice, and the whole time of spring practice. You're like, man, these receivers don't catch anything.
Yeah, this is correct.
They don't, and I don't mean they're dropping passes like, right off his chest. I'm talking about tough catches over guys, catches with dudes on them. They didn't haul in anything. Well, now they better, because that's how they're going to have to get on the field. And so I just think that competition at the actual position is going to make everything so much better, because now if you're on the field, you've earned it. And you're better than most of the guys in as opposed to just, you're the only one that's available. We got to play somebody. Hopefully Florida State won't be in that position this year, because they've really added to the position group I think we think 3 of them can definitely play at this level. Right? I think we think Wilson, Pittman, and especially Wright are huge additions. Like, those guys are going to play and probably play a lot if they're healthy. Deuce Spann, we'll see. He's still a project. He's only played the position for like a year and a half. He came in as a quarterback. He's a project. But those other 3 guys specifically, I think not only make Jordan Travis better, not only make Mike Norvell better, I think they make the other receivers better.
That's fair. Although I would say I think you've got one guy that you know for sure can play. You've got one guy that you're pretty hopeful about. And then, I don't know, I think Johnny Wilson, I think he's a wild card. He's an X factor. I don't think you can say we know he can play. Now, granted, he played in a 4-game 2020 COVID season out there on the West Coast of the Pac-12. Got injured in 2021. Had a good quarterback, though, man. Jaden Daniels is one of the better quarterbacks out west. Probably, I don't know, you could call him probably top 30 quarterback. And I don't really know who else was ahead of him. I don't feel like there was a logjam of talent in front of him. So, but I think the Winston Wright's the one guy that we haven't spoke about. For whatever reason, I feel like the conversation always defaults to Micah Pittman. I don't know if it's because of his pedigree or because he's coming from maybe the most successful program out of the group. And then obviously Johnny Wilson, his vast physical tools. But yeah, Winston Wright is a guy where he has produced, and I guess we could be like, hey, if you want to be the cynical guy, well, you guys said that about Parchment. Touche, a little bit different, same league, but, seemed to be a little bit more of a consistent performer, maybe not as boom bust. But what was his staff having to do last year? Like, what was Kenny Dillingham on Wednesday doing in the meeting room, trying to draw some stuff up to get a guy, like, he's drawing stuff to get Pokey Wilson open on a 3rd and 8.
Right.
And who's behind Pokey trying to help out? He's got freshmen. He's got Malik McClain or Darren Williamson or Kentron Portier, or maybe a guy that's a little more slight in the waist like Keyshawn Helton trying to figure out a way to run a rub route to get Pokey Wilson open. It's a pretty tough proposition. I'm not trying to make excuses, and I know it's always like taboo to blame it on the players, but I feel we're at a point, especially at wide receiver, where it's going to feel kind of like the end of looking back at the end of Bowden's tenure, where you're just like, man, it didn't work out to where we wanted to go on a nice high note swan song, although you won the bowl game against West Virginia. But just you did not have nearly the horses you used to have. So if a guy like Winston Wright can perform at the level he did at West Virginia, maybe Micah Pittman finds some sort of gear that he possesses but wasn't able to flash at Oregon. And you see these guys able to make tough catches, to your point, man. These guys could not make real football game live action catches, man. If they were covered heavily, other than like Pokey's crazy catch, I think, against the Gators, that's the only one that really sort of stands out to me off the top of my head. Like, these guys didn't go up and make plays. And I know you could say, well, maybe the quarterback wasn't giving him the best positions, but hey, man, he's working behind a kind of a rough offensive line. I just think that those guys, this almost flips the page in terms of where your talent is, what your ability is, and what your potential can be. And we'll look back on it. I think a guy like Darren Williamson can maybe emerge. Malik McClain can maybe emerge. I like Deuce Spann. But yeah, if Pittman and Winston Wright, and maybe to a certain degree Johnny Wilson can at least help in 2022, and helps a really low bar. But if they can perform to where we're expecting and what we hope, man, that resets Darren Williamson. I think that resets Kentron Portier to where, like, yeah, maybe 23, 24, those guys can be dependent on, because I don't think anybody was expecting those guys to be real big producers. So we're kind of on a good trajectory now. We're now on schedule. We have the talent to carry out what we're hoping in year 3 of this.
You at least have talent that's equal or close to equal to the other teams on your schedule. That was the thing, is it wasn't just last year that you didn't have great wide receivers. You had one of the worst wide receiver cores in the conference, maybe the worst. Production-wise, I think you did. Close to it anyway. If it wasn't dead last, it was close to it. I don't think you're there anymore. And, we talk about making the tough catches when you're in traffic. Also, how about making people miss? Like, turn a 3-yard pass into a 19-yard pass. That is allowed. I watch it, man. I see guys do it. Didn't see it a lot with Florida State, and that's a big part of their game, is the bubble screen and the screen out wide, just to get the defense running from side to side so you can hit them up the middle. That kind of stuff, that all matters. The RPOs matter, but if the P of the RPO is always 2 yards, well, why would Jordan Travis ever pull it out and throw it to you? You're not going to do anything with it. Now, again, there's legitimate competition to get the 3 or 4 best guys on the field that can actually make guys miss. And go back to the Wright Parchment thing. I didn't want to interrupt you because you're on a roll.
I was. Thanks, man. I appreciate that. Good to be back. Had all these thoughts,
But yeah, it is like the Parchment thing is different for 2 factors. Number one, Parchment's last year at Kansas, he did next to nothing. He had a good 2020, No, 2019.
Yes, correct.
He was good in 2019. He had like 3 or 4 100-yard games.
With a good quarterback.
But I also say this with all due respect. It's Kansas, man. There's a reason you're at Kansas playing football. Just like you had to, he was a guy that was on, I think Florida State was his 4th school.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Wright has been, West Virginia, we all know, is a real football school. They care about the school. They care about that program. And it gets a lot of eyeballs in that state. It's the biggest thing in that state. So he did it at a real program. I know they're in the same conference, but Kansas football and West Virginia football aren't comparable. And he was able to do it with that kind of attention for 2 years, be the leading receiver in that program for 2 years without waning, without having a couple, he had one big game and then was terrible for a month, or had one big year and then was awful the next year. This guy's really consistent. He's proven he is a 60-catch guy that can score touchdowns at the Division I level. There aren't any of those guys currently on the roster that are proven. Doesn't mean they can't be that. Deuce Spann might end up being the next Randy Moss. I don't know. But the proven guys on this roster are who? Like proven good receivers, who would you say? It's him, right? It's Wright?
Yeah.
Would you throw Pokey into that mix? I don't know that I would. He's had moments, but he hasn't been consistently very good. Neither has Keyshawn. And we love Keyshawn to death, but he, on the football field, he hasn't had a lot of great moments. And yeah, man, some of it absolutely has to do with poor quarterback play, but not all of it. And it's good now that not only do you have a proven guy that, like we talked about in the video, if you watch that, a security blanket that I think on 3rd down, a guy like Wright is a really good security blanket on 3rd and 6 for a guy like Jordan Travis. Whether it's a zone, whether it's a blitz, both. If it's man-to-man, if it's zone, he's a guy that's played enough football and caught enough passes to know he knows how to get open against each. And he's a really tough cover one-on-one in the slot. He is a mismatch. The guy, I hate to identify him like this, but the white receiver for NC State that torched him 2 years ago?
Thayer Thomas, the great
There you
Thayer
go.
Thomas.
Why can't I ever remember his name? And I hate using race as an identifier, but Aslan knew exactly who I was talking about right away, and so did y'all. But that kid was a mismatch in the slot. He was just a mismatch. Florida State hasn't really had one of those. This might be that guy. And when you have a mismatch in the slot, ask Tom Brady for all these years. Those are gimme first downs on 3rd and 4. You can get 6 yards with Winston Wright. That is such a commodity and a luxury to have. And I think this guy, you're right. We don't talk about him enough because he seems he's not going to lead the league in touchdowns, but he is a first down getter. And baby, this offense on 3rd downs it was one of the worst in the country last year. This guy is one of the reasons that can be so much better because you have a guy on 3rd and medium that you trust against man coverage. You cannot slow him down. You can't keep him from getting 5 yards in the middle of the field or 7 yards. And then against the zone, he can find a hole in it because he's seen everything. He's played a lot of football. Those other 2 guys, the other guys are unknowns, but I think we like their potential and their ability. And they might just be, like I've said before, we'll certainly, I think, know more about this after the spring, but they could be the Jermaine Johnsons of the wide receiver class. Not first-round picks, but we didn't know what Jermaine...
The sum of the parts, not the parts themselves.
I mean like Jermaine Johnson didn't really get an opportunity at Georgia to show what a beast he was. Like, he was good enough to play at Georgia, just like these guys were good enough to play at Oregon, Arizona State. But for whatever reason, they were never the go-to receiver. Maybe for ability, maybe because of injury, maybe this reason or that reason. They never got a chance with the opportunity to show what they could do, just like Jermaine Johnson never really got a chance to be an every down guy. And when he got that chance, he proved to be one of the best defensive ends in the country. Maybe Florida State knocks it out of the park, and one of these guys is the same way. Let's hope, right? We can only hope, Aslan. It's February. We got to sell hope.
The clutch shot, the biggest hits. It's time for the Zaxby's Indescribably Good
Player of the Week.
The man has spoken. It's time for the Zaxby's Indescribably Good Player of the Week. I'm going to keep it with the Oval, Corey. It's February. Baseball's around the corner. Maybe we'll have a little diversity in my diet. But, dude, this guy, Trey Cunningham, is something else. The senior hurdler participated at the New Balance Indoor Grand Prix over in Staten Island this past weekend. This was a real meet. This was with pros. This was with Olympians. Our guy ran a blistering time of 7.47 in the 60-meter hurdles, which is incredible.
Can I put that in perspective real quick?
Please.
count to 8 in your head, and right before you get to 8, cut it off. And that's how fast he ran it.
Amazing.
Go
Now
ahead.
he finished second, and I'm not the guy that celebrates anything less than championships and first places, but he finished second to Grant Holloway, who is the current world record holder. He has not lost that 60-meter hurdle race in 8 years. So you can finish behind that guy. You're okay. But, yeah, Trey finished 7.47. He was second place. He was a tenth of a second slower than the guy who hasn't lost in 8 years in the indoors and has the world record on it. So Trey Cunningham, this dude, my Zaxby's indescribably good player of the week. Corey.
I'm going to go on the hardwood. I'm going to go with women's basketball, though. Hey, good Sunday for we didn't talk about it on the Sunday Smash. We didn't really have the regular Wake Up War Chant, but Valencia Myers, forward/center for the FSU lady basketball team, women's basketball team. I don't know why I said lady. I think I was going to go Lady Seminoles, and then I realized, oh, yeah, we don't do that anymore. It's just the Seminoles, but it's the women's basketball team. Had 14 and 8, led the team in scoring, and Florida State beat, I think, top 20th ranked Notre Dame at home, which was by far the biggest win of the season to date for that team that has been struggling, but it's not out of it yet. They've getting their pieces back together. They've shown the ability to play with some of the best teams in the country. They finally beat one of the best teams in the country, and maybe they can get some magic going as they head into March. But that was a much needed win, and Valencia Myers was crucial for the Noles in getting that dub.
There you go. Valencia Myers, Trey Cunningham, are Zaxby's indescribably good players of the week. Hey, Corey.
Hey, Aslan, what's up, dog?
Not much, man. It's good to be back. Had this thought, listen to the Rosillo podcast. We're talking about NFL quarterbacks. And, like, there's a top 5 that you know. And then behind them is just, no matter where you stand position-wise on what the quarterback is. I think this kind of pivoted off of Matthew Stafford because despite the fact he's now in the Super Bowl, he's still a 2-interception game away from everybody being like, yup, that's who he is. It's just never going to be good enough. Good,
Sure.
but just not going to be good enough. So there's like 5 guys that are just elite, that are bulletproof. Your Mahomes, Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, although, R.I.P. Tom. I'm like, how does that kind of translate to, I don't know, college football? There's 32 NFL teams. There's, like 136 FBS teams. I don't know how many Power 7 teams there are. So, like, do you double that? Do we say there's 10 quarterbacks that are elite? I don't know even if there are 10 quarterbacks that are elite. And then, because I was thinking about just, as we're talking about wide receivers, talking about Jordan Travis, his play, this has got to be encouraging, man. They haven't gone the portal to get anybody that's going to threaten your job yet. And I don't think they will. If they get somebody, it's probably going to be some, backup from Northwestern or something like that. I feel like in terms of talking to Michael Langston when we do our recruiting chats. Meanwhile, they've gone and gotten you all these sort of weapons. Now, listen, again, Aslan, you said you only felt good about one of them, and then we don't know about the other 3. Fair. But, I mean, they're doing what they can to help him out. But is it going to be, I know this is a weird topic to talk about in the middle of February, but like is Jordan, you think is he closer to maybe being able to take a step with another year of starting and with some better talent around him to where, like, we'll know there's going to be like a consensus accurate assessment of who he is? Because right now, again, man, he's that great game. He's that North Carolina game of being like, man, let's just think about what this can look like if he can keep playing like this. And then you get your, maybe not the turnover game, but just can't get the offense moving in a Florida game to end the season off. And you're like, well, here we are, man. Really, where can we go? What's our ceiling with this guy? Is there enough going on around him? And is it fair enough to expect enough development out of him this offseason going into this year, which is going to be his 4th year playing college football? Not his 4th year starting, but his 4th year playing college football, to where, like, we're going to know what we have at quarterback week in and week out.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I think we'll know the answer to that by October 1st. Like, okay, you know what I mean? Like, I think by that time, whether it's fair or unfair, we'll have made up our minds on what he is. Like, if he goes and plays well in the Superdome and puts up 30-something points in that game, and then whoever, I can't remember what their schedule is at the right, but they go to Louisville.
Yes.
If he plays well there. If he goes toe-to-toe with the Cunningham kid and plays well, then all of a sudden, yeah, you feel good about it. And it's not like I'm asking him to go toe-to-toe with Lamar Jackson. Cunningham's not Lamar Jackson. You know what I mean? But he's a good player.
Yeah.
And so I think Louisville fans feel pretty darn confident about their quarterback for the most part. I don't think Florida State fans are quite there yet, but they did like what they saw with the understanding that he didn't have a lot to work with out wide and up front and pass pro all the time. He had some obstacles he had to overcome. He also, we talked about this on headlines. It was I think somebody asked us the question about will Jordan Travis be better because the receivers make him better? Will he make the receivers better, or will the receivers make him better? And my point to that was there are a small, finite amount of quarterbacks in this world that go into a system and make everybody around them better. And the example I used again was Kenny Shaw was pretty darn average for 3 years, and then he became a all-time Seminole fan great, a fan favorite, and had 1,000 yards. That wasn't because Doss started coaching him better. It's because who was throwing him passes. Jordan Travis isn't that guy, I don't think. I don't think he will ever be maybe one of those rare guys, because they're really rare. I'm talking about Aaron Rodgers, Jameis Winston in college, maybe Kenny Pickett in college. Those Heisman candidates.
Joey Burrow.
Those guys, man. He had some talent around him too now.
That's true.
But yeah, but I don't think he's one of those guys. But he doesn't need to be. If he can be better than he was last year, well, that will make him a darn good college quarterback, won't it?
Yeah.
Because he was on the cusp of it anyway. Like, he didn't have. I was talking about this too. Like, other than what, Clemson, I don't think you'd say he had a bad game last year, where you're just like, this kid doesn't belong in Clemson, right? And how are you going to judge him really against Clemson?
I mean, is
like,
that
who?
the bar we're using though? Like,
no, my point. No, we're not using the bar as like, okay, this guy should be your quarterback until he's done. Like, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that, or you shouldn't have brought in somebody.
It wasn't a horror show. It was never a horror show to where you're like, get this kid off the field. Now, the other guy, you said that about probably a few times, but with Jordan,
correct.
There's
correct
frustration, but other than maybe that opening drive against Notre Dame, otherwise you're like, all right, man, just settle in, please.
Well, yeah, and I didn't. It's weird. I didn't think he played well against Notre Dame. Really, I don't think he had a great game. Well, they had 28 points and were at midfield when he got his helmet knocked off. And he also, 2 of those interceptions, there's only one guy in the country that makes those interceptions. Right. The Kyle Hamilton kid's a freakazoid. Mm-hmm. Those were great plays that so the point being, it's not like Jordan Travis was awful last year or even bad. I always thought he was pretty good. Not great, but pretty good, especially for what was around him. He did what he could. That doesn't fly. I don't think that same gauge is used this year. I don't think you can do that again. I don't think you can just say, well, look, man, what has he got to work with? Well, they loaded him up at receiver. They've given him a better offensive line. At some point, he either has it or he doesn't. And I mean has it as in you're averaging 35 a game, 34 a game. You have confidence that no matter what kind of defense you're playing, other than maybe a Clemson, although they're going to be Venables list, that you go into a game assuming this quarterback will get you 30 points, like they do at NC State, like they probably do with Louisville, with the Cunningham kid. Yep. He's going to put points on the board. He's not going to be overwhelmed. He might actually end up being one of the best players on the field. I think there's a chance Jordan Travis becomes that this year. But I certainly would never – I don't think he's ever going to reach that elite status, but who has? Florida State's had, 2 of those guys maybe in its history? And I mean elite, like again, Chris Winkie, he made Atruse Bell close to an All-American, and he was a former walk-on. Like, those are the kind of guys I'm talking to that just see it quicker, make the throws, throw you open, read it quicker, get it out of your hand, all that stuff, or more accurate. I don't think Jordan Travis is ever going to be that, and that's what this team would need right now to be like probably a playoff contender or an ACC championship contender. They would probably need an incredible quarterback. But Jordan Travis should be good enough to get them where we hope they can go in 2022, which is, 8 to 9 wins, 7 to 9 wins, somewhere in that bubble.
I mean, I don't know if they've loaded him up at wide receiver. They've certainly tried.
That's what I mean. They've given him some groceries, right?
They've done the best they kind of can, which, Ira brought that up in the video with, you can maybe, if you want to second guess stuff, you can look back at last year and be like, really? Like, was Andrew Parchant was the answer?
Right.
I know Jameson Williams was out there. I don't know how realistic of an option he was. I don't think Charleston ran, but I think he might have already been at Miami. But at least they're kind of learning from their mistakes, which I don't want to celebrate all that much. But yeah, I mean they're doing the best they can there. So at least because I haven't seen anybody else. I mean, I know the Jermaine Burton kid from Georgia left to go to Alabama. I mean, I don't know if things changed if they hadn't gone ahead and tried to accumulate all that talent beforehand. But even that's a little.
I mean,
bit
I
of
don't
a
think so,
hope,
right?
you know?
Are we assuming that Florida State's a receiver would rather go to Florida State than Alabama?
Well, you never know. I mean, weather here's a little bit better. You know, a little bit better
I think
education.
I think the paychecks at Alabama and the paychecks after Alabama are a good reason to maybe go to Tuscaloosa if those are the two offering you.
Bryce Young's not bad dude to catch footballs from.
It helps too, yeah. I should have thrown him into the mix. Like Bryce Young, Jordan Travis isn't going to be Bryce Young. You're not asking him to be. Can he be Devin Leary?
Yes,
Can
please, right?
Can he be Malik Cunningham? Those are in. There's no reason to think like again.
Kyle Trask. Can you be Kyle Trask?
Well, Trask seemed pretty darn special there at the end, but I don't. Maybe he wasn't. Maybe it was just he had a lot.
He was a backup 2-star.
Yeah.
Kind of waited his time.
He's a backup in high school.
Yeah.
But yeah. So I think Jordan Travis is good enough to make this a good offense. I think because he gets better, right? He's lived every experience now. He played on the road at Clemson. He played on the road at Florida. He won a game at Miami against Miami in the final seconds. He had some great moments on the road at North Carolina and Boston College. He had a game-winning drive against Syracuse. He's also been beaten to bejesus and back. And he's had down moments too, but he's lived it all now. So it should be reassuring going into a season, unlike the last 2, 3, really 5. Keep going back, where you feel like you're confident that your quarterback won't be a disaster. You think you're not only won't be a disaster, could actually be a positive. Like, okay, if things break, Jordan Travis could go win us this game. If things aren't blocked up well, if our receivers can't get open, Jordan Travis still might be enough of a difference maker to go win us this game just on some sheer incredible athletic feats. That's good to know because you haven't gone into a season knowing for sure who your starting quarterback was going to be and having confidence that he could rise to the occasion. And I think we all have that confidence, right? Again, not that he's going to win a Heisman, but he's not going to be overwhelmed by any of these moments. He's lived it all now. He other than playing in a bowl game, I guess. He's lived it all now. He's played rivalry games.
He went to the Sun Bowl. He was in El Paso.
Yeah, you're right. And I think he got some carries in that. I think he played some quarterback in that game. I don't know if he threw any passes, but I just think that's that you can't overstate what that means to have a full season. Well, not really because he had to share time. But an incumbent starter coming back at quarterback, one that is confident in himself, and that confidence continued to grow throughout the year. And I know it didn't end well, but heck, he even finished the season with, 2 straight touchdown drives? That's something, right?
Okay.
Can build off that bad boy.
We didn't have a show on Monday. You and Jeff did the Sunday Smash, which took over Wake Up on Monday. Thank you. I was out of town. I was out of pocket. So
how'd that go? Did you have a good time?
Yeah, it was fun, man. Other than the ridiculous fiasco that ensued afterwards. So, I mean, I'm not getting the whole big story. I left my keys in my buddy's truck, and he lives like 30 minutes away from where my mom lives. And I didn't realize it until it was like 10:30. He's married with kids. He's already asleep by then. I couldn't get a hold of my brother. Ended up crashing at one of my buddy's houses, and he drove me to my brother's at like 6 in the morning, grabbed the keys, went to my mom's house, got my car. Because I don't have my car keys on my house keys. I have the fob separately. So then at least I got my car, got in the house, got my car, drove back to my brother's, gave him his keys back. Then I drove to my buddy's house, which was like 30 minutes away, got my keys. I threw my back out something serious on Friday, Corey, on some squats, only 225, embarrassing. I tipped forward on the way up, and I'm walking around like a decrepit old man. So I'm in a bit of a slump right now, but I'm glad we're all back. Speaking of slumps, there we go. You set me up.
Oh, nice.
Corey.
What a segue.
Yeah, basketball falls to Wake Forest on Sunday. Shorthanded.
Saturday. Get it right. Saturday.
They were shorthanded, and
by the way, I'm not going to say I was.
Injured.
I'm not going to say I was hungover at the basketball game because it was a noon start. But Stephanie had an old friend in town, and we might have been at Corner Pocket pretty late. Catching up on old times, reminiscing, and so that was getting up at 11 o'clock has never been so difficult for yours truly, but I did it and I made it and I powered through, only to watch Tenor and Gom go down, I think in the first 90 seconds, grasping his knee. So here our man Harrison Prieto came in, the weatherman, and then John Butler injured his ankle and didn't play in the whole second half. On top of Anthony Polite not playing, and obviously Malik Osborne. We already knew Malik Osborne and Naheem McLeod were out. So that's what we watched on Saturday.
Where do they go from here, man? They got a game later tonight against Pitt. What is it, 7 or 9 o'clock tip?
9.
Great.
Yep.
Sweet.
9 o'clock.
They're shorthanded, man.
Yeah.
They're obviously have no real momentum in terms of any recent success here. Just like, what are we hoping to get out of them? Is this almost like get to the conference tournament, hope you can make a run in the ACC tournament? That's pretty much kind of what you're hoping for. I mean, I don't think
that's about it, right? That's about it.
I don't know if Hamilton will ever admit that, but what are they going to try to accomplish here Wednesday night and moving forward before the conference tournament comes? Because, as you said, man, it seems to be the only way they're going to get into the big dance. Well,
and if they were, like, the thing is, if they when they were at full strength, I know they went on a nice run and we celebrated it and they deserved it, but it wasn't like they were torching these teams. It was 3 1-point wins, a 5-point win, I think a 3-point win.
Well, that's the way it is in the ACC core. That's the way.
Yeah, that's right. ACC blowout. But the point being, even when they were at full strength, I think they were anywhere from like a 7 to a 10 seed in the NCAA tournament. They were going to lose some games they probably shouldn't lose. We quote unquote shouldn't lose, and they might surprise some people when they played well or shot well. But then the Georgia Tech game, it went haywire. Malik comes up late. He already was playing on a bad ankle and then really hurt it in that game. So he's out for the season. Caleb Mills couldn't play because of the throat infection. Couldn't play the next game either. But it all started with that Georgia Tech game, and they're just not the same team anymore. So even if you look at the schedule and you're like, okay, yeah, they're on the outside looking in right now. But if they won 7 of these last 8 in the ACC, well, they'd be right there on the right side of the bubble. They could be a 7 seed or something. It's like, yeah, but they're not going to do that because they were barely beating some of these teams when they had all their parts. Well, now they don't have half of their parts. So they're not going to go on the road and beat Duke. They're not going to probably go on the road Saturday and beat North Carolina. That is a desperate North Carolina team, and you don't have your full complement of parts. You had to play a walk-on 6-year senior forward 26 minutes in a really pretty crucial ACC game last Saturday. That's where you currently are depth-wise. And Cameron Fletcher isn't right. Leonard said he's questionable. He's going to be a game-time decision. I think he's having back issues. John Butler has his ankle issues. And Gom's been hurt kind of the whole year. Osborne, McLeod, and Polite are out. So going into the season, if you would have been told, okay, well, you got 2 veterans. You got 3 veterans, really. 4. Okay, Raekwon Evans, who is just he's had some nice moments this year, but he's not a star. Wyatt Wilkes, certainly not a star. Polite and Osborne were the 2 guys you were counting on the most because they had big moments. They had 20-point games. They had started for multiple years. And then, they're not available either. This is about what you'd expect. You'd expect a really bad season. And this roster right now just isn't really built. Not built. It's not the available roster isn't good enough to compete and win games on a consistent level in the ACC. So to answer your question, I don't know. I don't know if you just want to maybe Worley can have some nice minutes to get him ready for next year. Do you just build for next year? You're doing that. It's not like you have a choice. You can only play who's available. But do you watch these games under the guise of, okay, they're probably gonna lose this one. They might lose to Pitt, who's awful. But man, it would be cool if Worley played well, or it would be cool if Ballard had a nice game, or Caleb Mills went off for 30, something like that. I don't know. I honestly don't know. Other than trying to build up Fletcher, Worley, and Cleveland, but you don't want to build up Cleveland too much. That's the delicate balance there. You want those guys to gain valuable experience, get a lot of minutes, and then it pays off next year. But the problem is that, you really don't know if Cleveland will be back. John Butler's name has been bandied about. He's on NBA mock drafts already. There are scouts that say that he could be a late first-round pick because of what he is. You might roll your eyes at that. I know I do, but they draft on potential all the time. So it's really even a hard thing to even Butler has a 20-point game. Is that good or bad for Florida State? Because this season, in my opinion, unless they get enough pieces back to make a run in March at the tournament, this season is not ending with anything. It probably is not ending in the postseason at all. So what's better for Florida State long term? For John Butler and Matthew Cleveland to have big outings and then become more appealing to NBA scouts, or for Matthew Cleveland to continue to struggle and for Florida State to continue to lose? I don't know.
Gross.
You know?
Who would have thunk 2 weeks ago that's what we would be talking about, right? I'm like, they've got past all the speed bumps, man. They're just going to keep getting better from here on out. They did. I mean, they won like 2 more games, and then, here we are.
It was cool, though. I did want to say this. It was cool how hard they played, and I know people shake their head when I say that. They had no business even being in that game against Wake Forest. Like, literally, they lost their starting center and their starting forward pretty early on in the first half. I know Ngam came back, but he's limping around. He's just not healthy. They had to play Prieto 26 minutes, and he had a good game. He had 13 and 13. He was their best player for long stretches, but they were so exhausted at the end. But, man, do they play hard. I mean, they really do. They had no business being in that game, but they forced 26 turnovers. They had 15 steals. Caleb Mills did not shoot well, but still had 3 blocks and 3 steals. Like, they're not equipped to be a great defensive team or an offensive team for that matter right now, but they still really did give it their all in that game and turned a 12-point deficit, I think, into a 1-point deficit with 2 or 3 minutes to go. Because it's Florida State, man, and that's how they play. That's how it's just ingrained in them. They're not going to just sit there and give up. Even the Virginia Tech game where those kids couldn't miss, Florida State took the lead in the second half. That's just who they are. That's what they do. And they did that without Polite, Osborne, Wyatt Wilkes throwing up an offer. Caleb Mills not shooting well. Matthew Cleveland can only make dunks now. All these things were working against them, and they still found a way to keep that close and be in the game in the final 2 minutes. And I don't think I'd ever remembered this before, but after the game was over and they were running out the clock at the end. Like Florida State had said, okay, we're not trying to score anymore. They're just dribbling out the ball. Most of the people had left. They're walking out of the arena. But even the people that stayed, and there were a lot of them till the final horn, were applauding.
Yeah.
Like, I think they were legitimately applauding the effort. Just that we all know you're shorthanded. We all know this is just the bad luck that you can't be expected to win with more than half your starting lineup out. But man, I think most Florida State fans that stayed genuinely appreciated the effort they gave on Saturday. Now, this show is coming out on Wednesday morning. They're about to play the worst team in the ACC tonight, and if they lose to Pitt by 25 points, you don't need to cheer that. Just go out and hit the road.
Pitt is 8-16 overall. They are 3-10 in conference play. They too come into Wednesday's matchup with a 4-game losing streak,
and they have been getting blown out. Like, they played Virginia Tech Monday night, and I think lost by 25 points. And on Saturday, I think they lost by 20. I mean, they are just getting crushed.
Capel's hurt, right? Like, the Schuyler got the job over him, or Duke. Not Schuyler. What's the guy's name that's going to take over?
Shire. You were close. You were right there. By the way, speaking of Duke, this is why you love NIL. Not that Duke had a hard time recruiting anyway, but Rivals came out with their top 150 players in the country, basketball, like the final rankings. I think they're the final rankings. They're probably not. They probably have another one. Duke has the top 3 players in the country coming to Duke. Literally, number 1, number 2, and number 3 ranked players in the United States of America are all going to play for John Schuyler, as Aslan calls him.
Mike Elko. What's Mike Elko thinking? Like, let me get some of this money. How am I supposed to win on the football field?
Absolutely. Like at Texas A&M, they got enough, right? Like Texas A&M, Buzz Williams is still getting his cut. I think he's still there at Texas A&M.
Yeah.
He still gets enough. They throw him some bones. I can't imagine. They're with Elko. They're like, yeah, man, we'll talk to us in like April. We'll let you know in April what your spending budget is.
Yeah. We'll roll it over to you. All right, and then before we go out, Florida State continues to bolster their, I don't know if you call it your back office, your front office when it comes to football, adding 4 people officially. Derek Ray from Oregon State is going to be the GM of personnel, which it's more of like a recruiting position. It's not like he's going to sit here and tell them who to cut off the team and stuff like you would in the NFL. But then they also made it that was official, and they also added Gabe Fertitta as a senior analyst for offense. He was a successful high school coach in somewhere in Louisiana. I know Catholic high school. I don't know exactly where it is, but he was at Louisville last year as a quality control guy, and he now comes on as a senior analyst. Greg Moss, a defensive analyst. He does have DC experience, I think, at FIU. Most recently was, he was a secondaries coach at FIU. Most recently was a DB's coach, secondaries coach at Charleston Southern. Then Carol Moore will serve as executive assistant and office manager. So, the only thing I would see, some people are like, well, I've never heard of some of these people. So I pulled up Alabama's staff directory, and I think they have about 10 analysts listed. And the only two that I know, Alex Mortensen, only because he's Chris Mortensen of ESPN fame's son.
Right. He played quarterback, right, at Arkansas, maybe?
Look at you. That is correct.
Yeah.
That is correct. I'm sure he probably played ball in Georgia, like in Atlanta.
He did.
I think,
yeah.
right?
Yeah. I don't remember what high school, but yeah, I think he was a pretty big deal up there when he was playing.
And then Dave Huxtable is another analyst for Alabama. And
That's Cliff Huxtable's brother. Theo Huxtable's uncle. Are we allowed to make Huxtable jokes anymore, or is that done?
I don't know what happened. Is he's free, right? He got out or something?
He is, but he's still Bill Cosby. He's still Bill Cosby now, but that was a really good show.
It was.
I loved that show. That's my whole childhood was like, Cosby, 8 o'clock. Man, that was a great show.
Yeah. He was defensive coordinator at NC State for, I think, 6 or 7 years. So.
Oh, all right.
If you're like, I don't know where they make their bones. They did have all those analysts back in the day, whether it was like Lane was moving up to it or Sarkisian, and they would get promoted to an on-field job. But it doesn't seem like they have any of those people on their staff right now at Alabama. So if you're like complaining, like, well, I don't get it, this is kind of
they'll probably have
what's going on around the country.
Maybe Brian Harsin will join the staff here in a week or two.
Someone had a real good joke about, I think it was about Alabama or maybe it wasn't Miami. It was Alabama. They're like, who cares? He's just going to hire Mike Zimmer as his defensive coordinator.
Yeah,
and
exactly right.
He could that could happen. Like we can't laugh it off that much. And then the only other thing that raised a little bit of an eyebrow for me, I don't follow it close enough to really offer my own opinion. I just have to kind of echo what I see off Twitter and stuff. But that Josh Gaddis hire sounds like a pretty good one for Miami. So for all the poking fun at them, I still don't know who their defensive coordinator is right now. Maybe I should know.
It's Kevin Steele.
Oh yeah, Kevin Steele. That's a good 1-2 punch.
Until he gets the Auburn job, until he gets the Auburn head coaching job.
Yeah, which who knows? I'm sure he's working on that right now. But yeah, Gaddis was. I don't know if he worked for Alabama at some point, but I think he did. Yeah, I think Harbaugh straight up took him away from Saban. He's been the OC at Michigan, and Harbaugh kind of ceded more of the responsibilities to him this past year, which ended up being their most successful season of Jim Harbaugh being there. Harbaugh staying in Michigan, but I guess Gaddis was maybe going to be bandied about as being the successor if he were to take the NFL job. He did not. He didn't get it. And so now Miami has him as their offensive coordinator, then Kevin Steele, which he's a journeyman. But, dude, he did really well at Auburn. If I'm not mistaken, man, he beat Alabama 2 years that he was there.
Was he just at Auburn this past year, or was he out?
No, he's been out. He was at Tennessee. He got that job, I think, at Tennessee. He took the D.C. job at Tennessee because I can't
even imagine what his bio looks like.
I know.
Starting from the Panthers. What that bio. I mean, it must have been 14 schools in 21 years or something. It's just
was he at Baylor before that? Was he the head coach at Baylor?
I think
before he went
so.
to the
Yeah,
Panthers?
that sounds right. That sounds about right.
Man,
and speaking of that, real quick with Gaddis and Steele, this was something. It's a frustration that I think some fans feel when they look at what the questions that they have about Norvell putting together a staff. And there are legitimate questions about, okay, why do you want so much continuity when you just went 5-7? Maybe continuity isn't what you're looking for. And Ira and Jeff obviously, and me too. I'm like, look, continuity is a good thing if you think you're going in the right direction. And Norvell clearly thinks he is. But I also understand the if you take a 30,000-foot view of what he's done with his staff, his offensive coordinator his current offensive coordinator was the OC at Charlotte before becoming the O-line coach here. But Charlotte is his experience as an OC. His defensive coordinator was the DC at Marshall before getting the job here. And before that, Memphis, right?
Yes.
And before that, a bunch of small schools. Meanwhile, you watched your rival, who you made fun of for not having coaches for the last 2 months, get the OC from Michigan and the DC who was at Auburn and Tennessee. Like, so, okay, are they, we'll see. And the thing is, it's February. So we have no idea. Atkins might be incredible. It might work out great. And Fuller might be, a rising star in the coaching ranks. But you understand that the frustration maybe that you can see when you see rivals pulling together, going off the, up to the Big Ten country and up to the SEC to get coordinators that were coordinators at the big schools. And then you seem to be kind of going by what you're familiar with or, lesser known names because maybe you're more comfortable with them. And is that the right way to build a staff? Is that the best available person for this staff right now? And I'm not questioning it. I have every right to get to question it again in October, and I will. But right now, I can understand why you're looking. And those guys might be. There's plenty of big name coaches that have been awful. Pelini got Ogeron fired a year after he won a national championship. He was a huge name. So just because you came from a big school or have a big name doesn't mean it's a guarantee. But I do understand kind of looking at those two situations, go like, all right, well, Norvell kept Dawsey. He promoted an OC. He promoted an offensive line coach to OC when his offense was not very good anyway. And then his DC, he got with him from Memphis because he struck out on a guy from Georgia. Like, are these really the best hires that he can make, and are these the best hires for Florida State? I understand that questioning. I'm not saying I agree with it. I'd rather sit on the fence, but because that's where I belong. I like sitting right on that fence. But you get that, right? Like you look at a name like Gaddis and you look like a name like Steele. And
I trade that right now, and I love Alex Atkins. I love Adam Fuller. Like if I'm an NFL franchise, if we're looking at like a business perspective, man, like absolutely. If I'm the owner and my GM's like, I can get you Kevin Steele to run your defense, and I get Josh Gaddis to run your offense. I'm like, absolutely. I mean they're more accomplished, man. They are.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now offensively, maybe Alex Atkins is not as big of a. I don't know the right word, but it's Mike Norvell's offense, man. He's a great offensive line coach. So maybe I don't want to diminish his title and his job as offensive coordinator, but I like what he is as an offensive line coach. But ultimately, Mike Norvell's going to call the plays. Gaddis just took his team to the playoff. Now they got neutered on television in front of everybody, but that was a really good defense. I think that defense would probably do that to most any other team that they had 3.5 weeks to prepare for. And then, Kevin Steele in 2017, Auburn won the West, man. I mean, Auburn was in the SEC championship game in 2017. Their running back went down, and then they lost to Georgia in that one. And then in 2019, he beat Alabama too. And yeah, man, the Auburn defense has been salty. Like Gus's offense, they're what underwhelmed. That's what his offense got them to the national championship game in 2013. But after that, man, they were underwhelming and totally inconsistent. That defense is kind of what gave him that second win and got him that second or third contract at Auburn. That's where he got a big payday. But yeah, man, but again, we'll see what happens in terms of recruiting all these guys, getting the right guys out of the portal. Jordan, I think Tyler Van Dyke's probably still a little bit better of a quarterback than Jordan, but with a year to develop, with that continuity, maybe that'll pay off. And that's where it kind of all comes around to paying off.
All I know is that Jordan Travis is 1-0.
He is.
Against Van Dyke.
This is correct. This is absolutely correct.
Jordan Travis didn't run up to the line of scrimmage to spike a ball with only 2 seconds left on the clock like an idiot.
Sheesh.
Come on, know the rules, Van Dyke.
Do you remember the late Kevin Green attacked Kevin Steele on the sideline?
Wasn't he the Panthers coach at the time when that happened? Yeah, I do remember that. Yep.
So his bio, Baylor head football coach, and then he comes to Florida Panthers linebackers coach. Then he goes to Baylor for 3 years, Florida State for 3 years, then Alabama for 2, Clemson for 3, back to Alabama for 2 more years, then LSU for a year, then Auburn for 4 years, and then 10 days in Tennessee, where he was the interim coach after they got rid of Jeremy Pruitt, and he thought he was going to be able to hold on to it, but they hired Josh Heupel.
And he had just taken the Maryland job for 2 weeks before before Miami took him. So that
in January,
when you throw Maryland in there, that's 10 different jobs he's been at in the span of, 20 years?
He's good though. I think they'll.
Hey, he keeps getting hired for a reason, right? Keeps getting hired for. But the problem with him is that as soon as a better job comes open,
oh yeah,
see ya, Canes. It's real. Y'all need these polos back. I bet he's asked that a few times in his life. I wonder if he has a collection in his closet.
I've got to find it. Yeah, but his wife's got an account on eBay selling all these like great coaches gear from all these.
Yeah,
schools.
man. Good grief, make a fortune with that.
Yeah. All right, that's a wrap for us. I think we probably have to be back tomorrow, right, Corey? There's a basketball game later on. We got to wrap that up.
Yeah, sure. Maybe we do a little do the
Renegade Express thing too.
The questions, yeah.
All right, go to Renegade. Go to Tribal Council. The thread will be up. Post your questions in there. I know it's not a lot of runway time, but you got a few hours. Get them in there.
And you guys know we love you. Yeah, you mean the world to us. Hey, shout out to Shane, pillar, a great pillar of the show. He tweeted out on Monday, maybe. I guess he met Norvell at some event in Texas.
No kidding.
And had a picture with him and Michelle, so that was cool. So he got to meet him at some booster function.
Mike back in his old stomping grounds, a Texas boy, done good, done right.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
All right, so we'll have a show again coming for you tomorrow. In the meantime, stay connected to warchant.com. Jeff's coming up 1 to 3 o'clock, and head over to our YouTube channel if you haven't done so already, and you can hear Ira's thoughts on the wide receiver position in terms of what they've done in the transfer portal, part of our series previewing spring football, which is approaching probably first week of March. Gene heard March 5th. We haven't heard anything officially, but football season-ish is kind of close-ish. He's Corey. I'm Aslan. Thank you for listening to Wake Up Warchant, fueled by DeLuna Coffee. Come explore our world of coffee. DeLuna Coffee features over 24 different blends. DeLuna's unique roasts can be delivered ground finely for drip coffee makers, coarse for the craft crowd, untouched as a whole bean, or even in convenient K-cups. Founded in 2014 by the Lemmix family, Ed and Brett are FSU alums and boosters who are extending a special offer to all listeners. Use the promo code WARCHANT15 for a 15% discount. Visit DeLunaCoffee.com and check out their Facebook and Instagram.